Hey everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience with the Cisco DevNet Associate certification. I passed in 6 weeks and 3 days. Unfortunately, I had to attempt this test twice. I'll explain why that is later and how you can avoid that and pass on the first try. My background is that I just took the CCNA before I took this one. I have no professional experience in network automation, using their request library for APIs. I'd never used an API before, or I guess I'd never pulled data, gotten an authentication token, all that stuff. I have basic coding experience for a few years. I know how to do basic stuff, but nothing with I can't solve the problems on leak code, to say the least. So let's take a look at my first attempt. So those are the breakdowns of the categories for my score. So I got a 50% on understanding and using APIs. I got a 60% on Cisco platforms and development. I'm pretty sure these are both weighted at 25%. And then this one is 20%, and this one is a 25, and this one is a 20. And so that was my first attempt. I will get to why it is that I took the test if I got these scores. I very clearly wasn't prepared. In my second attempt, right, I got a 93 here. I got a 75 on understanding and using APIs, and I know why I did. I'll explain later. And then I got an 80, 87, 80, 87 on the rest of the categories, which is, it's okay. It's not amazing, but this was an interesting exam. It's, I would say it's harder than the CCNA because the main reason is that nobody really takes this thing. This is a pretty rare certification, not because it's, I wouldn't say it's rare because it's super hard. I would say it's rare because it's not, it's just not sought out. It's a very niche thing, network programmability, automation. So study time was 6 weeks and 3 days. I already explained my background, so let's get into the resources that I used to pass this test and what you should use. This is not in order of importance. As always, feel free to watch this video in 2x with captions so you can get through it faster and still get the same amount of content. So the first one I used was boot.dev. It is this very fun coding, boot camp, but it's not really a boot camp because you can just pay for 1 month and do the Python course. Okay, so as you can see, all you need to really do is learn to code in Python, learn Linux, and learn Git. I did not finish this one, but if you do, I think I probably should have done this one because this is on the DevNet exam. All the Git commands, branching, merging, pulling, pushing, all that stuff. So that is pretty important. So these first three, you don't, I guess you do need to do number 5 as well. Number 4, it's honestly not bad. You can put it on your GitHub if you want, but yeah, so you can get all this done. So 1 through 5, you can get done in a month. So you can get that done in a month if you have no Python experience. Obviously, you won't be able to pass the exam in 6 weeks if you have zero Python experience. So that's why for my WGU students, if you already have the WGU Python course, you should be fine. But if you don't, and you never really used Python before, you never really coded before, I would highly recommend doing boot.dev. It's fun. It's not too hard. You have an assistant on the side that's powered by GPT, and it's very fun. It's probably the best coding class I've ever taken in my life. Number 2 was CBT Nuggets. I really found this thing to be pretty boring. I don't know what to say. The videos are like 5 or 6 years old. They haven't been updated for DevNet Associate 1.1, right? It's a 1.1. So they're pretty old, and no offense to the guy, his name is Knox, but obviously this isn't anything personal, but I just find his voice to be very annoying. just not pleasant for my ears. In my opinion, obviously that's personal, but I didn't enjoy the CBT Nuggets course. And also, it has no labs. Maybe it has one lab, but yeah, it has no labs. So you're just sitting there watching videos all the time. And, they go through code snippets, but you're supposed to pull it from his repository, and then you kind of just watch him meander through his code or write it. It's boring. It's boring. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, I would recommend going through this course as like a first time thing, just making sure or getting your brain familiar with the terms like firepower and catalyst center and all these different APIs and what they do, and then the software development and design concepts. This was not a good CBT Nuggets course, to say the least. Number 3, some better courses are LinkedIn Learning and Percipio. So Percipio has IT Pro TV, which can be boring, honestly. This whole course is very boring. Not as boring as CompTIA's Project Plus. That's probably the worst certification I've ever experienced so far. But LinkedIn Learning was very helpful because it is Kevin Wallace and like one of his employees who basically does the whole course. So it's not really Kevin Wallace, but it's his company. So LinkedIn Learning gives you that course, and they give you a better video walkthrough on how to do exercises with the APIs, which is very, very, very important. As you can see, DevNet Sandbox has 3 exclamation points in the lines. Very important that you lab. You got to lab. Okay, for Cisco exams, you have to lab. That is what I learned with the CCNA. We will get to why I had to take it 2 times, but one of the reasons was I didn't lab. DevNet Sandbox was going through maintenance, and I thought maybe I can just get through this without DevNet Sandbox, and you can't. You cannot pass this exam if you have no professional experience in doing network automation and you don't use DevNet Sandbox, in my opinion. Number 4 is the Boson XM practice test. Thankfully, we get those for free as a WGU student. We get LinkedIn Learning for free, Percipio for free, CBT Nuggets for free. Boot.dev is unfortunately not for free, but if you already took the WGU Python course, you should be fine. Boot.dev is $50 for a month. Kind of expensive, but 100% worth it. So going back to the Boson practice tests, so they're good preparation. They are not as close to the exam. Like they're not as good preparation for the exam as I would have liked them to be. Like, the Boson practice tests or the CCNA are significantly harder, but they are 100% worth it because you want to be able to breeze through the CCNA on test day, right? So you take the Boson practice exams, and if you can do those well, then you should be perfectly fine for the exam. But for this case, if you take the Boson practice test, you should be getting at least an 80, 85. There are some stupid questions there, like ICMP. You do not need to know ICMP type codes. That's ridiculous. That's nowhere near on the blueprint. I have no idea why those questions are there. So when you see those questions on your practice test, skip them. Number 5 is Quizlet. You need Quizlet. I will put the 2 Quizlets I created for this test in the description below. The password to one of them is WGU. And so my first Quizlet has like 200 terms. It is, a bunch of it's some multiple choice questions. It's some vocab questions. It's CRUD operations. And my second one is purely HTTP status codes. The second one is important. It is very important that you know your HTTP status codes. This will help you a lot on the exam. Not just help you, it will literally give you the answers to some questions. So you need to know your HTTP status codes, which I've put in the description as a Quizlet. I got them straight from the OCG, the official cert guide. So that's all the status codes you need to know in that one thing. Number 6, ChatGPT. Again, as I said in my CCNA video, everybody knows that when you talk about something or you try and explain a concept to someone, or I guess in this case something, you understand it better. Your brain will, save that memory, and you'll be able to recall that concept better. So I would highly, highly recommend talking about concepts such as Agile, DevOps, comms, three ways of DevOps, right? Systems and flow, continuous experimentation and learning, and then the feedback loop. Feedback loop would be number 2. But you need to talk about concepts with someone, and obviously I'm not going to talk to my mom or dad or brother about the request library. So instead, either pay for a ChatGPT subscription to use advanced voice mode, or use Gemini Live, which is free. You can download that app. Number 7, DevNet Sandbox. All right, you need the DevNet Sandbox. You need it. Okay, you need to lab for this exam. There are no lab-based questions per se, like the CCNA, where you have to, go into the CLI, configure stuff. There are drag and drop questions with Python syntax. I hope that doesn't break my NDA, but that is one of the reasons why I failed my first time, because I was not familiar with the request library, with HTTP basic auth, with Postman, with API output. You need to know these things like the back of your hand, okay? And the only way to do that is with DevNet Sandbox. You can use, just to get familiar with the request library before you start working with Cisco APIs and SDKs, Cisco SDKs as well. Not just the request library, but Cisco Python SDKs like the Meraki, like ACI. ACI is authentication method you need to know. But just free APIs that you can use the request library on are WeatherStack, NumVerify. There are a few more. You can just look up free REST APIs and then do that. Postman, you need to be familiar with doing Postman. You need to be familiar with HTTP headers, and you need to be familiar. You need to know them exactly, like content type, accept, XAuth token, authorization basic, authorization bearer. The scope is limited, but you need to know what you're doing. Okay, you need to use the DevNet Sandbox. You need to reserve instances, not just the always on stuff. You need to reserve instances, go in, play around with this stuff, get familiar with posting in, go to the blueprint and make sure you can do the things that they tell you to do, like get a list of devices, get a list of clients, and WebEx. WebEx, you might encounter some issues. So what I did was, you first need to download the WebEx app, sign up for an account, and then create a room. Make sure you do that in the app before you get your personal authorization token from the WebEx for Developers site, because I was so confused as to why it wasn't working, and then I did that and it fixed the problem. So if you need to experiment with WebEx, and to do that, just follow the steps I just said. Number 8 is the OCG. This is the main reason why I took the test the first time and failed. The practice tests in here, I should have listened to the Amazon review, but the practice tests in here are bad. They are very, very bad. They are horrible. They are only maybe 20 or 30% as hard as the real exam. I guess you could use them in a similar manner to Pocket Prep for the CCNA, kind of just getting out of the way the easy and medium questions. But when it comes to the drag and drop questions, okay, you need to be prepared for these things, because there are a lot of drag and drop questions. The OCG is horrible. It is outdated. First of all, it's for the previous version of the exam. And number 2, the questions are too easy. It's ridiculous how bad this practice exam that was included, the Pearson test prep practice exam with the OCG, it's horrible. Do not rely on it to kind of gauge where you are at with test prep, if you can take the test or not. Otherwise, you're going to end up like me, flunking on my first attempt. You can do this in one attempt. You just need to know what to do. Number 9, lastly, is mnemonics, but they're not mnemonics. They're just like weird words. So RDCTM was for waterfall, requirements and analysis, design, coding, testing, maintenance, and then PDDB, Diddy again. That's how I remember that one. PDDB, TD, planning, defining, designing, building, testing, deployment. That's for the SDLC. Need to know these two, by the way. And so unfortunately, it did take me 6 weeks and 3 days, which is the same amount as the CCNA. But unfortunately, I did have to go through 2 attempts. You can do this in 1 attempt. Hang in there. make sure you lab, make sure you use the Python request library, make sure you use the Cisco SDKs, make sure you are familiar with Python. Okay, you know how to read Python syntax. It's not going to kind of overwhelm you or intimidate you. You need to know how to do this stuff. Otherwise, you will fail. If you do not have any professional experience with this stuff, you're coming into this like me, wondering, what is all this stuff? How do I interact with an API? You can do it. You just need to make sure you have the proper skills. And I found this exam to be much harder than it should be because it is the version 1.1 and all the resources are out of date. And out of those resources, there are like barely any resources for this thing. Very disappointed in the Cisco resources for this, because on the Cisco Learning Network, there is this DevNet Associate Learning Map where they tell you, oh, we have 40 hours of free self-study material. Then you click on each of them and all of the links, like 95% of the links are broken because they restructured Cisco Learning Lab Center. So that is incredibly annoying. Cisco Learning Labs is something that you can use to get familiar with Ansible and other technologies. Make sure you are familiar with Ansible. I didn't write it here, but make sure you just, you can search up Ansible Labs on Google and find a few free ones on Code Cloud. That's K-O-D-E, Cloud. I think Cloud is spelled with a K. But yeah, you need to be familiar with Python and Ansible and Bash scripts and Git commands. That was really annoying. Git branch minus F. What does that do, right? So yeah, that is my advice for this exam. There aren't really many resources out here. That's why I wanted to make this video, because the other two videos that I saw are like, oh yeah, I have professional experience doing this. And I'm like, no, that doesn't apply to me, right? So I made this video for other students out there, other people who are going into this, thinking, I have no professional experience. I don't know how to study for this. This is a good blueprint. If you have any questions or if something's confusing, please leave a comment, even if it's like 2 or 3 years down the line. Hopefully I'll be able to give you a good answer, and thank you for watching.